Well, good morning. I originally was going to put this video outside, and it was going to be in a bus shelter, but the bus shelter that I was going to use is the one that's actually just outside my church. And you can get some pretty colorful language, and I did not feel like bleeping it out. So I'm going to start this video just inside our front door, and we'll see if we can walk around in a few minutes. But I wanted to talk about something that happened to me on the bus years ago, and it was in Vancouver. I was working for a Mount Nakoma co-op. My kids were really, really young, and I used to commute, on the bus when it was rainy or snowy out or anything like that. And I was on the bus this one day, and you've got the courtesy seats were up at the front, and then you got a couple of rows of seats that are just beyond the courtesy seats, and I was in one of those on the right-hand side and facing forward. And we're driving down, and it's a pretty packed bus, as it usually is, but for whatever reasons, only one side of the courtesy seats were filled, and the other side were empty. And on the ones that were filled, it was three little old ladies, very sweet, clutching their purses, kind of thing, holding their own, getting ready to go wherever they're going. And one of the stops came up. This guy gets on the bus, and it's like he was as big as me, and I'm about 6'4", so you kind of fill up that space at the front of the bus. And he had a big down jacket on with all these holes, and it's like the down feathers were kind of flying by as he walked. Big shaggy hair, and he sits down in the middle of the courtesy seats at the front, opposite these little ladies. Now, my first initial thought was, "Hey, buddy, do you really need to be there, right?" Just being all self-righteous about it, And you can see that the ladies across from them, they clutch their purse, and they start to hold a little tighter, and a little more wary, a little concerned about what's going on. And I looked around a bit, and you could see there was a woman that was standing in the aisle beside me, and she was just kind of starting to step back. You could see the whole front of the bus start to recoil to this guy's presence, because he looked like someone that was going to harm people, okay? And something that I've learned over the years, and certainly started with this lesson, is that the people that have harmed me the most or hurt me the most are usually the people that don't look like they would, or they're people that have been, going to church or Christians most of their lives, and somehow, some way you think that we should know better how to treat one another, how to treat people with kindness and mercy, and especially with patience. But in any case, back to this scene, I'm sitting there. And my first thought is, I'm going to do something about this. I thought, I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the hero of the day, right? All of this is running through my mind. Like, whatever this guy's going to do, I'm going to shut it down. And I forgot to mention that he was carrying this huge duffel bag. And it was like a body-sized duffel bag, And so this guy, reaches down and starts to unzip slowly the duffel bag. And I'm looking at this thinking, okay, here we go. I'm going to be on the news. I'm going to be a hero. I have no problem facing someone physically. So I was just like, all right, this is it. Put down my backpack, and I stand up, and I'm all ready to go. This guy reaches into his duffel bag, and he pulls out, I kid you not, a sunflower. Like a full sunflower. Cut stem, of course. And he reaches across to the little old ladies opposite him, and he hands the one in the middle the sunflower. And you could see she just overwhelmed by this. The whole mood of the front of the bus changed in that moment. She took the sunflower, and I certainly hope, I don't know what happened after this. I certainly hope she took it home and dried it or something, just kept the memory of this whole experience alive. So she takes that. She holds on to it, and I look around, and there's the woman that was standing in the aisle who's taken a step back, just tears are streaming down her face. You can see people reacting to the beauty of this moment. I'm standing at this moment, and I'm realizing I was the problem. I was the problem. This guy absolutely did a blessing upon this bus. I was the one that was thinking of doing harm. I was the one. I didn't look the part. I didn't have a jacket with down, feathers flying all over the place. I had had a shower that morning. I didn't look the part. of the villain, and yet I was. This guy grabs his bag, the next bus stop happens, and steps off the bus and he walks away. Now, I had taken that route so many times over the years. I worked with Mount Co-op for a few years, and I had been on that route many times. Never saw the guy before, never saw the guy since. But I'll just say this, it left an indelible mark on my heart. Something that I never forgot. Because in that moment, I realized the truth of what I can read in like the book of James, where we can't judge a book by its cover. I'm, paraphrasing that big time, right? But we can't simply show favoritism based on how people look. If they look wealthy, if they look rich. We can't look down upon someone because they don't look the part in our minds that should be okay and acceptable. What if the people that we're turning away, what if the people that we're, rejecting, like I rejected this guy on the bus. I mean, imagine if I did harm to the guy. Imagine if I went up and I interrupted what was happening. I've been left to live with that the rest of my life. That I was the villain and that I harmed someone who was just giving a blessing because of my own bias, my own judgment. No, we need to think differently about the people around us. Loving your neighbor as yourself, it's one of those things, it's called the royal law, partially because it's given by our king, right? But if we want to look at that, love your neighbor as yourself, it's not tied to geography. It doesn't mean somebody that's literally living beside you. It might be, right? That's kind of an obvious, takeaway. But what if it's the people at the bus stop? What if it's the guy on the bus? I should have gone out and asked the guy. I should have talked with him. I would have loved to have learned from this man. And I can say quite easily that some of my best lessons, some of my best friendships, some of my most deep human connections have happened sitting on the sidewalks at Main and Hastings in Vancouver, a place where respectable people don't necessarily walk down all the time. It's become a tent city. It's an awkward place. But what if that is where we need to be? What if we need to be in the difficult places in order to show people towards the light? What if we need to see the light in ourselves? So don't be that guy. Don't be that person that looks at someone just because they don't look the part of safety and we reject them immediately, because there may be a lesson in there that will not only heal us, but help us to be a little bit better. I always like to think that God has a plan for each of us, and that in many ways that God knows who we are so deeply that he knows who we can potentially be. And that is so hopeful for me, that the guy who made the mistake on the bus, me, that maybe there's hope for me yet. That if I'm presented with another situation like that, I won't so quickly reject the guy. Maybe I'll go and learn from him. Maybe I need to learn from him. It was a guy that was actually just across the street, right across here, that he was sitting beside on the sidewalk, and I went over and talked with him. You know what his first thing he says is like, you know what the problem with church is? Your doors are closed. And that hit me like this, because he was right, literally and figuratively. So maybe it's our hearts that need to be more open. Maybe we need to look for the strangers on the bus. Maybe we need to look for the people who don't quite seem to fit in, or maybe we're afraid. Maybe we need to drop that fear and take a risk and learn from someone. Maybe you'll see a sunflower on the bus like I did. Maybe that's going to be something that sticks in your heart like it has mine. I hope so. I hope you'll go on this journey with me, because I have so many more stories like that where I've failed, I've made mistakes, but somehow, some way, God has taught me how to live through them. So let's live through it together. Be the one who gives the sunflower on the bus today.